Kevin Paulin and his brother Raymond are third-generation stonefruit growers in Central Otago. While they produce traditional Central Otago crops, they're innovative in their approach in both growing and marketing.
My grandfather came to Clyde after the First World War. He'd worked in Roxburgh prior to that. I think we're coming up 100 years since he was involved in fruit growing, and he bought the original block in about 1921, I think it was. We're just, I guess you'd just say, a traditional family business, just myself and my brother Raymond. My parents are still live in the area and sort of involved in the business to a degree. Dad still potters around on the lawnmower and the orchard and whatnot. We have about 100 hectares of planted orchard. Some of that's on own land and some of it's on lease blocks. We have 4 or 5 lease blocks around the Alexandra and in the Bannockburn area. We're about 40% cherries, maybe about 25% apricots, and the balance is nectarines and peaches. If you're in the commodity end of the business, a bit like when we used to grow apples, we had apples 10, 15 years ago and we got out of those because I just didn't see any future in being involved in a commodity type business where you're at the whims of what they might decide to do in Chile or South America or or Australia or whatever. So we got out of apples. I think it's about 14 years ago when we looked at Sweetheart and Lapin cherries and we decided, hey, look, we need to be growing these. And the same can be said for likes of the flat peaches and nectarines, which we've been involved in. I saw those when I was in France about 9 years ago, saw an opportunity and in conjunction with one of the nurseries that had the rights to those varieties, did a deal and now we're the only people in New Zealand growing them. So, while you need to have that base of a commodity type business, to sustain your pack houses and your labour force and whatnot, the opportunities to make a living in this job, I think, is down to having some sort of advantage, whether it be in niche marketing or new varieties or whatever. You have to do something a wee bit different. You've got to add value somewhere along the line. We're in a block of donut peaches here in Bannockburn. These are what we call flat-hose, which is a registered trademark for this variety in New Zealand. I guess the added advantage and the really nice thing is the fact that we are the only people growing them and have the rights to grow them, allows us to control the quality and the packaging and those marketing relationships become a lot easier when you haven't got pressure from outside from other suppliers. The obvious advantage we've got is the flat shape really gives you a point of difference. But we can back the point of difference up with the fact that they are a delightful piece of fruit to eat. They're white flesh, they've got a sub-melting gene so that you can eat them quite firm and they're still nice and juicy. They taste brilliant. It was a very big punt, from day one. I'd shown it to a lot of people and they said, no one's going to buy these things, they're ugly, they look awful, how are you ever going to sell them? So that was it was a punt, and with the acres that we planted and developing, anybody in the horticulture game, when you start developing 15, 20 hectares of product from the ground, it's a very expensive business. So it was a punt, but yeah, hopefully it's something that's really going to pay, well it has paid off in the last couple of years, and we're really excited about the next 2 or 3 seasons as our production levels come up.
The Paulins have targeted late maturing varieties of cherries.
The last cherries grown, I know, in Central Otago, probably picked maybe around about the 8th, 10th of February. Tasmania is probably similar, they're the 2 latest growing areas in the Southern Hemisphere. So with a bit of storage and whatnot, by the end of February really there is no cherries left in the world. As you can see, the bag down there, there's a 35 litre bag. We've got 2 drippers feeding either side of the bag. Okay, they're going on about once every hour, up to on a very hot day. We're probably putting on about 12 litres of water with the nutrient mix in it. We're trying to get about a 20% runoff, so we have to monitor that depending on how hot the day is. Just a normal Sweetheart cherry tree. It's grown colt rootstock, which is a normal rootstock. Obviously the bag restricts the growth, so we don't get the vigorous that you'd expect. Obviously it's a different type of tree that you normally see because we need to keep the tree nice and compact, so when we're stacking them in the cool store we can get as many trees in as possible. The main issues we had obviously is the trees coming out in full bloom in December when it's a lot warmer, and we have had problems with pollination and we're putting it down to it's just too hot. So cherries aren't used to being in full bloom when it's 30 degrees. which we can get those hot days in the end of November, early December. So that's one issue we had to deal with. We've had sort of varying pollination at times. Even this year we've got the trees that come out a week earlier and had different pollination period, quite distinctly lighter. We've probably only got about a third of crop. The trees that come out a week later have overcropped. So, just because of the weather we struck at pollination. You have to be very vigilant that the feed is being fed all the time. It would only have to go a day or a couple of days without the feed and it would have detrimental effect on the quality of the fruit and whatnot. So it is incredibly hands-on as far as that goes, making sure that the plant's working properly, that they're getting fed. And then there's the monitoring side of it. As I say, we're measuring the CF, which is the amount of nutrients being provided to the tree on a daily basis to make sure that's constant. We also adjust that feed during the growing season 3 or 4 times, and again that's been from a bit of experience and trial and error.
Kevin and his brothers have a hands-on approach to marketing.
We're working very closely with the Yummy Fruit Company in the North Island, based in Hawke's Bay. We saw some ability for our two organisations to work in conjunction to some degree. They obviously produce a lot of nectarines and peaches, but their season is about 3 to 4 weeks earlier now, so there's some opportunity for us to come in at the end of their season with similar varieties, similar quality fruit. So now we basically formed a company, Yummy Central Limited, which provides Yummy branded product into the marketplace, which complements what Yummy's doing in the North Island. And that's been a great thing for us, we've got a focused marketing team because they basically, Yummy do all their own marketing. So we've got a focused team working for us in the North Island. And in the export front, well, we were in a joint venture company with a large grower in Alexandra, the Hinton family, and we have our own export company called Clutha Valley Export, which we are directors and shareholders of. So we directly export all our own fruit. So the philosophy of in the old days of, your responsibility finishes at the farm gate, that's miles from the truth, in this day and age. You have to be responsible for your product right through to the consumer.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.